Daniel Owens never pictured himself pacing the driveway of his own home in handcuffs. Yet that terrifying thought flashed through his mind the moment he saw Emily crumpled on the front steps, clutching her shoulder in agony. In that instant, the calm of his post-military retirement shattered, replaced by the same fierce resolve he'd known through 25 years as a Navy SEAL. He swore then that he would dismantle the power-hungry HOA that dared harm his wife, piece by meticulous piece. Since retiring, Daniel and Emily Owens had embraced the promise of peace in Meadowview Estates. Their 30-year marriage had weathered deployments, loss, and the lingering shadows of combat. Emily, once an ER nurse, planted healing herbs in the backyard. Daniel restored vintage sailboats in his spacious garage. The neighborhood's listing agent had boasted of serene, close-knit living, and for 6 months, their days passed with gentle routine. Emily's soothing laughter drifting from the garden, Daniel's soft classical music echoing in the workshop, and weekend barbecues with friendly neighbors Michael and Rachel Grant next door. Then came the trellis. For their silver anniversary, Daniel handcrafted an elegant oak frame for Emily's climbing roses, a gift born of love and splintered patience. The morning after he unveiled it, a knock sounded at their door. It was Victor Reed, the HOA's burly compliance officer. Hands on hips, clipboard in hand, he announced curtly that the trellis violated Section 27B of the covenants and must be removed within 48 hours, or Emily and Daniel would face a $500 fine. Daniel offered to submit the design for retroactive approval, only to be told, rules don't work that way. Emily, tending her beloved garden, was later fined another $150 for, quote, unauthorized horticultural activity. Daniel's knuckles whitened as he read the second notice. He froze, recalling the same measured calm that had guided him through ambushes in Kandahar. He approached Victor at the driveway's edge. Our deed predates the HOA by decades. My gift is on my property, he said, voice controlled. Victor replied, property values matter more than sentiment. Daniel watched the man stride back to his SUV, the revving engine echoing across their lawn like a slap. The Grants appeared at the fence, concern etched on Michael's face. Victor's boss, Linda Bowman, runs this place like her personal fiefdom. She's driven 3 families out in the last year. Daniel felt the predictable click of a mission plan forming in his mind. He promised Emily they would fight back, legally, methodically, as he had been trained to neutralize threats without leaving evidence. That evening, Emily reclined on the sofa with her arm in a sling. The doctor had confirmed a torn rotator cuff from an accidental shove by Victor 2 days earlier. I just wanted to share some tea leaves with Mrs. Grant, Emily whispered, tears in her eyes. Daniel's heart thundered, but he recalled his SEAL creed, calm is contagious. He nodded, drawing a slow breath. We won't let them intimidate you. Over the next week, Daniel researched Meadowview's founding documents and local zoning laws. He discovered the original Meadowview company had sold lots but explicitly reserved a handful of parcels, including theirs, for the original landowners, exempting them from any future HOA covenants. Their exemption was recorded with the county in 1986, 9 years before the HOA even formed. He also uncovered a pattern of selective enforcement. Neighbors with deeper pockets or political ties escaped fines for identical covenants violations. At the same time, Victor ramped up his patrols, documenting every misplaced garbage can and curbside grill. A week after Emily's injury, Daniel intercepted Victor on the sidewalk, snapping photos through their window. When Daniel demanded accountability, Victor barked, "Maybe you should move if you hate community oversight so much." Daniel's measured reply, "Photos are evidence, Mr. Reed," went unanswered as Victor stalked away. Late one night, Emily awoke, gasping from a nightmare. Her hospital shift trauma mingled with worry over Victor's unchecked power. Daniel held her, promising that tomorrow he would begin their operation, a systematic dismantling of the HOA's corrupt machinery using the very bylaws and state laws the board pretended to uphold. He swore to restore peace not only to their home, but to every resident the HOA had terrorized. In the silent darkness, Emily squeezed his hand. She trusted the man who had once saved her life in Pakistan. Now he vowed to save their community. The next morning, Daniel assembled his team of unlikely allies. Michael Grant, retired detective. Rachel Grant, investigative reporter. And Lucas Turner, an Army veteran lawyer who'd once been saved by Emily's expert care during a training accident. Over coffee in the Grants' kitchen, they drew a map of the neighborhood, marking every HOA violation, every unwarranted citation, and every suspicious financial transaction gleaned from public records. "We start by exposing the pattern," Michael said, tapping a row of color-coded sticky notes. "Selective citations against people who questioned the board." Rachel's laptop filled screen after screen with scanned HOA financials. Inflated landscape consulting fees paid to a shell company owned by Linda Bowman's brother. Generous security contracts awarded to Reed's private firm. And unexplained lump sum transfers timed just after major fines were levied against residents. Lucas's brow furrowed as he studied the HOA's bylaws. They've been misusing the dispute resolution clause to bury complaints. And these emergency powers, Linda invoked them twice this year without proper notice. That's illegal under state code. He typed furiously on his tablet, drafting a formal request for an audit by the state's Homeowners Association regulator. Meanwhile, Daniel organized the next stage, intelligence gathering. He installed discrete cameras around his property to document Victor Reed's harassment tours. He and Michael interviewed harassed neighbors, Ms. Wen, fined for her Buddhist prayer flag, Mr. Alvarez, cited for his adaptive swing set, and Mrs. Langley, an octogenarian penalized for a garden sculpture that distracted drivers. Each testimony was carefully logged with date, time, and photographic proof. As the dossier grew, Linda Bowman and Reed sensed the net tightening. They ratcheted up their tactics, threatening foreclosure for unpaid fines, falsely claiming authority to inspect interiors, and even reporting minor code infractions to the county building inspector. Reed took to lurking in shadows near the Owens windows at dusk, capturing illegal gatherings of children at Daniel's self-defense classes. He dared them to call the police. Instead, Daniel turned to Officer Tanya Bradley, a principled beat cop with a duty to protect civilian rights. He approached her discreetly with documented harassment, only to learn she had broader concerns. Reed's abusing his HOA badge to skirt the law, and I've seen records implicating Linda in lobbying the local chief behind closed doors. Bradley agreed to provide unofficial backup and quietly forward relevant police logs to Lucas Turner, who would fold them into the regulatory complaint. By the third week of Operation Meadowview, the Owens living room resembled a SEAL mission planning cell. Charts on the wall, documents piled high, and Lucas pacing as he rehearsed the imminent legal filings. Rachel's exposé was scheduled to drop online the next morning, timed to coincide with the state regulator's public hearing on HOA compliance. Michael and Daniel trained flashlights to illuminate Reed's nightly patrol routes, while Emily, despite her healing shoulder, coordinated with vulnerable neighbors on how to document and report new harassment attempts. One evening, Victor Reed and two other enforcers arrived outside the Owens house in a county-marked patrol car, ostensibly to follow up on an anonymous tip about unapproved exterior lighting. They snapped photos through the window blinds, ignoring polite instructions to stay off private property. Daniel watched from the porch, heart thrumming, as Reed's face snapped with fear when he noticed the surveillance camera aimed at him. Daniel gave no chase. Instead, he calmly took detailed video of Reed's trespass, logging the license plate number and uniforms for evidence. That same night, Linda Bowman convened an emergency board meeting in her lavish clubhouse, an event Lucas Turner later proved was held without proper notice and with only hand-picked board members present. Through insider sources and Bradley's help, Daniel obtained an audio recording of Linda instructing Reed to crush the Owens and make an example of anyone who dared challenge the board. The recording was the smoking gun, direct evidence of conspiracy to harass and intimidate residents for personal and financial gain. As news of the recording and Rachel's pending article spread through Meadowview, neighbors began popping into the Owens' yard with solidarity, baked goods, supportive notes, and signed affidavits attesting to their own HOA grievances. The aura of fear that Linda had cultivated evaporated in the face of overwhelming public documentation and growing outrage. At dawn the day of the state hearing, Daniel mounted his laptop in the clubhouse podium. Dozens of residents filled every seat, papers in hand, faces set with resolve. Lucas Turner began by formally presenting the regulator with an exhaustive complaint: selective enforcement violations, unauthorized emergency powers, missing HOA funds, illegal inspection actions, and orchestrated violence against a civilian, Sarah's assault. He submitted financial statements, recording transcripts, neighbor affidavits, and the critical audio of Linda's orders to Reed. The regulator, an austere civil servant named Marisol Vega, reviewed the mountain of evidence with mounting disbelief. "This is among the most comprehensive HOA misconduct cases I've ever seen," she said, straightening her glasses. "Meadowview Estates is immediately placed under provisional oversight pending a full audit. Any further harassment or unauthorized inspections will result in immediate sanctions and potential criminal referral." Applause rippled through the room. Daniel caught Emily's eye from the front row. Her smile, despite the lingering pain in her shoulder, was radiant. Meanwhile, Rachel Brooks' expose went live online. The headline blared, "Navy SEAL wages legal campaign to uncover HOA corruption in Meadowview Estates." Inside, her article laid bare the shell companies, the diversion of dues, and the sworn testimony of dozens of residents. Comments exploded in solidarity from other HOAs nationwide, people sharing similar abuse stories and promising to apply the Owens methods in their own communities. Back in Meadowview, another front opened. Lucas filed a civil suit on behalf of the Owens family and 20 other residents for civil conspiracy, extortion, and embezzlement. At the same time, the district attorney's office, prompted by Marisol Vega's referral and clear evidence of criminal misconduct, opened a parallel criminal investigation. Police Chief Ramirez, embarrassed by the revelations, publicly apologized and placed Officer Bradley back on desk duty while an internal probe began. Linda Bowman and Victor Reed reacted with panic. They convened a hastily called meeting with their attorney and board lackeys to plot an escape, perhaps a fraudulent auditor to whitewash the books, or misinformation fed to the press. But Michael Grant had anticipated their desperation. He and Bradley intercepted a leaked email outlining their plan to bribe a local reporter. That email, now provided to the DA, sealed their fate: conspiracy to obstruct regulatory oversight. 4 months after Emily's shoulder was injured, the first indictments were unsealed. Linda Bowman faced charges of embezzlement and racketeering. Victor Reed was charged with assault, trespass, and conspiracy. Martin Pierce, the treasurer, was indicted for money laundering. And Bradley's superior, Chief Ramirez, resigned under pressure as evidence of obstruction of justice came to light. In the wake of the indictments, Meadowview Estates, Emma, once Emily's old name, sorry Emily, returned to nursing with renewed purpose, developing community outreach programs, teaching patients how to advocate for their rights. Daniel found unexpected satisfaction consulting with other communities, sharing the Owens method of documenting abuses, creating resident alliances, and using legal leverage to uproot entrenched corruption. One warm evening, Daniel and Emily hosted a block party on the very driveway that had been the flashpoint of their ordeal. Children darted between picnic tables, neighbors swapped heirloom tomato recipes in front of the new trellis, now covered in vines. Lucas Turner, Rachel Brooks, Michael and Rachel Grant, and Officer Bradley stood among the guests, united in celebration rather than division. A local news crew filmed the gathering for a follow-up segment. Meadowview Estates has transformed from a community of fear to one of fellowship, the reporter noted as Emily handed Daniel a glass of lemonade. What's your reaction to this remarkable turnaround, she asked. Daniel surveyed the joyful scene, laughter, shared stories, and genuine friendship blooming in place of arbitrary rules. I never imagined retirement would lead to a second mission, he replied, voice warm. But seeing people come together, protect each other's rights, and build something better, that's the victory I served for. Emily slipped her hand into his. Sometimes the fiercest battles are fought at home, she said softly, but together, we prove that courage and strategy can reclaim any territory, whether on foreign shores or your own front lawn. And as the camera panned across the sunset-bathed street, Daniel Owens realized that the only easy day had been yesterday, and every fight worth having begins with the resolve to stand up and never back down.